This is the iPhone 16 Pro, and this is the Osmo Pocket 3. Should you invest your money in a dedicated content creator camera like the Osmo Pocket 3, or spend the extra money on a camera like this that has a GPS and a flashlight? It's a valid dilemma, especially in an era where smartphones are packed with such powerful cameras. We are going to look at their differences from a real-world usability standpoint. If you're a video creator, you're going to want to have the highest image quality possible. And if you're a beginner, you're going to want to have the best looking image straight out of the box. I'll talk a little bit about the specs, but we are going to focus more on how these cameras actually perform when you're outside using them. Because what matters most to me is how these cameras will treat you once you go out into the field. Spec sheets don't really matter once you encounter their limitations. This video is not sponsored by Apple or by DJI. I bought both of these cameras with my own money. Neither company reached out to me or sent me these cameras. In fact, this video is not being sponsored at all. I'm going to treat this comparison as more of an actual use case type of video and focus on both cameras' image quality. I could probably use both of these cameras for about 90% of what I do personally before I would ever need to pull out my standard, more bulky, mirrorless camera, which is my A7S III and a gimbal. But before we get ahead of ourselves, can you tell the difference between these two shots and whether it was shot on the OP3 or the iPhone 16 Pro? And while you observe those shots, I'll be sharing with you what we will be covering today. We're gonna look at the low light capabilities of both of these cameras and how they perform in the real world evening hours. And then we're gonna go into the night and see what those night shots look like. We're gonna get some 1080 60 frames per second shots for all of my 1080 shooters out there and see how they look when we upscale that to 4K. We'll put both cameras through some basic autofocus tests. We're gonna look at skin tones, do some stabilization tests while I'm walking and hand holding both cameras. We're gonna do some vlog style type shots where I have the cameras at arm's length and I'm walking with it, talking to the camera. That way we can also get an idea of what the audio sounds like. We're gonna see how much distortion both cameras give us when we have their wide angle adapter for the OP3 or we're using the ultra wide on the iPhone 16 Pro. We're gonna use both cameras as if we were doing documentary work, doing some client shots, and I tried to get some cinematic type shots in uncontrolled lighting environments. We're gonna shoot with the OP3 in D-Log-M and the 15 Pro in Apple Log. We're gonna look at both of their normal color profiles and see how they compare to each other. We're gonna do some dynamic range tests, some green screen work, and I'll be talking about which camera is for whom. Today, on the Film Lines. If by the end of this video you're still undecided about which camera you should purchase, I made a which camera should I buy course that will walk you through the steps of choosing the right camera. Purchasing a camera is not easy and I struggled with it for years until I developed a methodology and system that makes it a lot easier. This way you'll be elevated from the stress and the burden of figuring out what camera is best for you. If you want a quick and easy version, I made 2 free quizzes on which camera or lens you should choose. The quiz will ask you specific questions and based on your answers, funnel you to the camera or lens that best suits your needs. I'll leave links to the course and the quizzes in the description. If you looked at those comparison shots in the beginning of the video and you could correctly name the camera, then you have a good eye. Because there were definitely some shots that I didn't know what was what unless I looked at the file name inside of the editor. If you like videos like this one, make sure to like this video so I know to make more videos like this one. The Osmo Pocket 3 is marketed as having a 1-inch 9.4 megapixel sensor, capable of shooting 4K up to 120 frames per second. It supports 10-bit D-Log and weighs only 6.3 ounces. And it features a fixed 20mm f2.0 lens on the end of it. And it's built with a gimbal so you have mechanical stabilization. It's no wonder why it's such a popular choice among content creators, often because it's flying off the shelves. And normally when I check on it, I'm not surprised when I see that it's either sold out or on back order. However, the exposed gimbal arm does raise some concerns about durability, especially if you're prone to dropping your gear. I just recently dropped the Osmo Pocket 3, which is the 3rd time that I've dropped it, and thankfully, nothing has happened yet, but I have seen comments online saying that people are experiencing some issues, not only with the gimbal arm, but also the display. But with that being said, I have heard that DJI is very good about fixing the Osmo Pocket 3 and sending it back to the users who are having issues. And in the other hand, we have the iPhone 16 Pro, which is the latest flagship from Apple as of September 2024. It has a 48 megapixel sensor that can shoot in 4K up to 120 frames per second. It can shoot in Apple Log and it weighs 7.99 ounces. The iPhone's strength lies in its versatility. It offers multiple fixed lenses with varying focal lengths. It has a great electronic stabilization and a host of additional features, like the ability to download LUTs and have even more camera exposure control, making it a very tempting device if you're purchasing this to be a content creator that also can text and call people. The Osmo Pocket 3 was released in October of 2023 with a starting price of $519 US, and the iPhone 16 Pro starts at $999 US, and it was released in September of 2024. The Osmo Pocket 3 does not have internal storage. You will need to purchase an SD card, so make sure to budget an extra 20 to 50 bucks for a compatible SD. Believe me, I learned the hard way, thought that I could get a cheap SD card in there, and I got an error message. Whereas the iPhone has internal storage, and that means it's going to fill up quickly while you're out in the field filming, especially if you're shooting an Apple log. That makes the OP3's interchangeable SD card feature a big plus. I was curious about how the Osmo Pocket 3 sensor performs in low light and whether it outshines the iPhone 16 Pro. The answer? Well, it depends. We're gonna get more into that once we get to our low light section. If you're considering the Osmo Pocket 3, I've created a course on setting it up for cinematic shots and maximizing its potential, complete with project files. I'll link it below. But first, we're gonna discuss my experiences with both of these cameras and who their ideal users will be. I tested both of these cameras out in their auto and manual modes, using the Blackmagic camera app and the Final Cut camera app to have more manual exposure with the iPhone while keeping beginners in mind. I've owned the Osmo Pocket 1 since it was released in 2019. So the Osmo Pocket 3 just feels like a larger, more feature-rich version of the OP1. So I am very familiar with the Osmo Pocket 3. I've owned an iPhone since the iPhone 3 or 4, so I'm also very experienced with using iPhones as my main camera. I used every setting that I could in both of the cameras, and I optimized their exposure for their best image quality by downloading some extra apps with the iPhone and using the manual exposure with the Osmo Pocket 3. How much control you want over the exposure is really up to you, but both cameras are very capable if you were to only shoot in auto exposure. For public shooting, the OP3 is less conspicuous and easier to handle, especially for those horizontal shots, because you can hold it vertically. It won't attract much attention, and it's way simpler to use without any interruptions like you might get with your iPhone, which could have interruptions because of phone calls and texts, or you could get distracted by scrolling. I prefer a standalone camera like the Osmo Pocket 3 for ease of management, but carrying both devices, I would prefer the iPhone 16 Pro because this slips into your pocket, whereas this is going to be pretty bulky in your pocket, and you're gonna probably wanna pull it out and just hold it. The Osmo Pocket 3 offers physical buttons and a joystick for control, whereas the iPhone relies on a touchscreen, which can be less efficient. It does have some buttons on the outside of the camera, like this button on the top that helps you scroll different options, but for the most part, I prefer that tactile experience with the Osmo Pocket 3. When it comes to manual exposure, the OP3 gives you more control than the iPhone when you open them up straight out of the box. Unless, like I mentioned, I download a third-party app for the iPhone. But you could control the Osmo Pocket 3 with your iPhone 16 Pro by downloading the Mimo app, which will give you way more control with your Osmo Pocket 3. But neither camera has the best on-screen exposure tools. With the Osmo Pocket 3, you have to scroll over and then kind of adjust your settings. And with the iPhone, you'll have to dive into some of the third-party apps in order to operate your exposure fully, with the exception of aperture. I cover more techniques in my course on how to use the Osmo Pocket 3, which will improve the image quality of your video. I'm contemplating on whether or not I should make a course on how to use your smartphone or your iPhone to get better videos. So if you'd like something like that, please let me know in the comments. When I was out in the field shooting, I set both cameras up to open to 4K 60 frames per second by default. The OP3 even has an auto record feature upon startup, which is great for fast-paced environments. All you have to do is flip the screen and it will start recording once it turns on. A key advantage over the iPhone is its ability to customize presets for different lighting conditions, which will allow you to have quick adjustments compared to the iPhone's straightforward start and shoot approach. Now, software updates are a lot more simple with the iPhone, but require more steps for the Osmo Pocket 3, either via an app like the Mimo app, or you have to hook it up to your computer, which can be a bit inconvenient. Lastly, if you often shoot in wet conditions, the iPhone's weather sealing is crucial, as the Osmo Pocket 3 lacks any type of weather sealing. I bought the OP3 Creator Combo Kit, which includes a wide angle adapter that just adjusts the focal length from its initial 20mm to about 15mm. The iPhone 16 Pro's full wide mode hits around 13mm, offering a slightly wide shot, but both have very similar corner distortion. Using the wide lens as an accessory with your OP3 can be practical, but there's risk of misplacing it or getting fingerprints on it while you're attaching it or detaching it and trying to find it in your camera bag. The iPhone's all-in-one design eliminates these types of issues, but it would be a good idea to get some type of protective case that will keep the lenses clean and scratch-free. When shooting with the 13mm on the iPhone, I noticed that my fingers can sometimes creep into the frame, so if you're not careful, you have to make sure that your fingers are all the way on the edge of your phone while you're filming. Freewell and a couple other brands make lens attachments for the iPhone. And with the Osmo Pocket 3, because it's a fixed lens, you can add ND filters to the end of it, but you can't add any types of filters that will zoom your shot, at least as of the time of recording this video. If you do plan on getting ND filters, make sure to get the right ones, because if you don't, the OP3 will not close properly. The gap is too big. I have found some thinner options, and I'll leave a link to those in the description. A standout feature of the OP3 is not only the gimbal, but also its ability to lock the camera in place using the joystick, which will reduce unwanted movements. The iPhone lacks this feature, leading to slight shifts as you're walking. Even if you're holding it as steady as possible and you have stabilization set, you're still going to see a little bit of wobble in your shot. It's an electronic stabilization. So that's important to think about if you're looking for those cinematic type shots. For vertical content, the OP3 downgrades to 3K resolution, though you can still record in 4K 60 by keeping the display in landscape. You can, however, turn your Osmo Pocket 3 sideways when you turn it on, and you'll get a 4K resolution image, and the iPhone maintains full resolution when filming vertically. You don't need to turn it sideways. The Osmo Pocket 3 has mechanical stabilization. The benefits of having mechanical stabilization over electronic stabilization is, number one, your battery will not drain as fast. Because with the iPhone's electronic stabilization, it's constantly going to be working harder to make sure that video is stabilized compared to the stabilization with the gimbal. That's also going to help when we get to low light shooting. Because there's less processing power going on in the Osmo Pocket 3, it should theoretically have better low light performance than the iPhone. The iPhone 16 Pro does have action mode, which requires more light and it doesn't shoot in 4K. In contrast, the Osmo Pocket 3 has no stabilization modes, ensuring consistent resolution. However, the benefit to the stabilization in the iPhone compared to the Osmo Pocket 3 is the stabilization up and down movement will be stabilized compared to the Osmo Pocket 3. This stabilizes all of your axes except for the up and down, so when you're walking, you'll still see that up and down movement, unless you walk like a ninja. Some users find stabilization quality in both of these cameras very similar, but focusing more on low light performance, the type of stabilization that you're gonna want is mechanical stabilization out of the Osmo Pocket 3. Let's talk about low light. I'll let you be the judge on which one of these two cameras you think offers better low light performance by taking a look at these side-by-side comparisons. The OP3 captures clear images at the golden hour with minimum noise, and its light flares appear more cinematic compared to the iPhone. Unfortunately, the iPhone has something called ghost flares, where the light is reflecting off the back of the sensor back to the lens, and you can see this little light popping around. And it definitely inhibits you from going out and getting cinematic shots, especially in the low light hours, so you'll have to learn how to work around those ghost flares. The Osmo Pocket 3 actually has a low light mode, which boosts performance, but it sacrifices that D-Log capability, which could enhance the low light results. I recommend using the regular video mode in your Osmo Pocket 3 and just adjusting the settings manually for better outcomes in your low light shots. I cover this in detail in my course. I've noticed that shooting in the log profile or the Apple log profile on the iPhone will give me significantly better results than shooting with the D-Log M on the Osmo Pocket 3. But when you shoot in the normal color profile on both cameras, the images are about the same. With that being said, the Apple log files on the 16 Pro will be much larger than the D-Log footage out of the Osmo Pocket 3. So you almost have to hook up an external recorder on the iPhone to make the file sizes more manageable, because if you don't, you're gonna run out of storage real quick. However, there are practical solutions for this. If you download the Blackmagic camera app and you shoot in ProRes log in H.265, you'll find that the file size is significantly smaller, making it much easier to edit on your rigs. As someone who grades video every single week, I can tell you that the D-Log M is easier to grade, but you do have less room to grade with it, whereas the Apple log footage, it's a bigger file size and you have way more room to push and pull those colors. If you get the Creator Combo Kit for the Osmo Pocket 3, you'll get an extra battery, which will help last longer than what you will get with the iPhone. Although the iPhone does have a substantially longer battery life than we we've had with previous iPhones before the iPhone 15 Pro. And when it comes to charge times, the OP3 way outdid the 16 Pro, using the same exact charging cable hooked up to the same exact USB-C cube. So if you're on the go and you need fast charge times, then go with the Osmo Pocket 3. Both cameras have fixed apertures, but the Pocket 3 stands out with its unique product showcase mode. This mode is particularly beneficial for product videos or overhead shooting because it'll focus on the subject in front of you rather than automatically locking onto your face or in the background. Sony was the first one to come up with this feature, and I find it incredibly helpful, especially when I'm making videos like this one and I want to hold the camera up in front of the camera like this. And you can see it takes a little bit of time for it to finally focus in on whatever you're holding in front of the camera. And then when you take it down, it comes back to your face, but it continuously wants to lock onto your face. So product showcase mode in the Osmo Pocket 3 has been super helpful. If you do get the Creator Combo Kit with the Osmo Pocket 3, it includes the DJI Mic 2. That'll seriously up your audio game if you plan on using audio with your Pocket 3. But for now, let's listen to the native audio right out of both cameras.
Here's our walking vlog shot test with the iPhone 16 Pro compared to the Osmo Pocket 3. I want to see what both look like if this was your only camera and you were a vlogger. Not only what it looks like, but also what it sounds like. And now I'm vlogging with the Osmo Pocket 3. I appreciate this camera a lot more because I can actually see the display right in front of the camera, make sure that my framing is correct compared to the iPhone 16 Pro. But I'm not a huge fan of the audio out of the Pocket 3 because it's not going to be nearly as good as the iPhone 16 Pro. Here's our vlogging shot with the iPhone 16 Pro at night. Right now it's not even low light anymore, it's night out, and I'm using a street light to give me some key light on my face. And then we're going to test this against the Osmo Pocket 3. And here's our vlog shot with the Osmo Pocket 3. Don't only pay attention to the image quality, but also listen to that audio and how much different it is than the iPhone 16 Pro.
One advantage of the DJI Mic 2 with your Osmo Pocket 3 is that it will display the audio levels on the screen. Additionally, the built-in receiver to the Pocket 3 removes the need for an extra or an external receiver like with the iPhone, making the audio setup seamless. The DJI Mic 2 also saves internal recordings, providing a backup in case you have audio issues with the internal sound that's coming into the Pocket 3. If you're a vlogger, the big difference is going to be the fact that the camera on the OP3 flips around and you can actually see the display. Whereas if you use the front-facing camera to be able to see the display on the iPhone, your image quality is not going to be nearly as good. This really only affects people who are filming themselves, holding the cameras at arm's distance. But if you want to get the highest image quality possible, you're going to have to use the 1x camera and then flip it like this, and you'll have to just guess what your framing looks like. But with the Osmo Pocket 3, this should not be an issue because you'll be able to look at the display as you vlog. I've heard some people say that you can buy an Apple Watch to monitor yourself using the rear-facing camera of the iPhone 16 Pro, but I don't want to buy an Apple Watch, and if I'm blindly filming myself, not only will I be worried that my frame is not correct, you filmed this entire talking head shot and then you realize you were cutting off your forehead, but also while I'm trying to hold the camera in that awkward way, my finger might touch the display and focus on something in the background and I would be unaware of it. I wish the Osmo Pocket 3 had been available when I first started out. It has made my life extremely easy to get my behind the scenes shots, being able to get B-roll, be able to use it as a B-cam. The image quality that I was getting back in the day would have been greatly enhanced throughout my filmmaking journey. I do wish there was an option to unlock the gimbal for some handheld looking shots with the OP3, and I'd love a bit of a less smooth look for future versions, but that's just a very minor complaint. I haven't shot much in HLG with the OP3 mainly because not everyone has HLG monitors. If someone watches HLG footage on an SD monitor, it could appear overexposed, something that I learned the hard way a few years back. While the OP3 is half the price of the iPhone 16 Pro, then I would say pick up an Osmo Pocket 3 on the used market or going with the Osmo Pocket 2. The Osmo Pocket series is fantastic for beginners or anyone like me needing a solid B camera. In terms of color profiles, the OP3 outperforms the iPhone 16 Pro in most cases unless we throw this camera into Apple Log. But Apple Log does take a little bit of know-how in post-production to get the colors to where you want it, and D-Log-M is a lot easier to grade in post. Its mechanical stabilization provides better image quality overall without constant adjustments. The OP3 motivates me to go out and shoot more often because it's an actual camera in my hands and it's not a phone that has a camera in it, and its ability to shoot in that 4K 120 and getting really great image quality as long as you're lighting the situation properly. My iPhone tends to stay in my pocket while I have it. I'll pull it out for a quick memory or get some BTS shots behind the scenes, and then I'll just put it back in my pocket. But out of both of these cameras, the camera that I shoot with the most is my iPhone because it's always with me. So should you invest in a dedicated content creator camera like this, or spend the extra money on the iPhone? I would personally recommend getting the Osmo Pocket 3 before you get the iPhone because this dedicated camera will force you to go out and create. Another great feature the Osmo Pocket 3 has that the iPhone does not have is active tracking. This is great for smooth product shots or if you're a single creator and you want to make it look like you have a cameraman. Both cameras do serve different purposes, and if you plan to do more than just capture memories, then go with the Osmo Pocket 3. Once you have it, you'll want to go out and keep on shooting. If you just want something that's handy for memories that'll give you a great looking image quality, then go with the iPhone 16 Pro. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Joe with the Film Alliance, and I'll see you in the next video.